Have you ever had someone say something that completely threw you off balance? Maybe it's happening today. A comment that hits a nerve, a criticism you weren't expecting, a challenge that catches you off guard. In the moment, your mind goes blank. And then, hours later, while you're driving, walking, or standing in the shower, the perfect response suddenly comes to you. The Stoics had a name for this experience. They saw it as being defeated without a weapon ever being raised. But what if you didn't have to experience that anymore? What if, instead of searching for the right words after the fact, you had a set of responses so calm, so thoughtful, and so deeply grounded that they not only addressed the person speaking to you, but also quieted the turmoil within you? That's what this video is about. Stay with me. Welcome back to Wisdom of the Stoics, where ancient philosophy helps us navigate the challenges of modern life. If you're new here, there's something important you should know. This channel isn't about motivational cliches, quick fixes, or empty positive thinking. Our goal is to explore the original teachings of the Stoics, the reflections of Marcus Aurelius, the letters of Seneca, and the lessons of Epictetus, and uncover the wisdom that still works today. These ideas have survived for more than 2,000 years because they were designed for life's toughest moments. Moments just like the one we're talking about today. Before we dive into the 7 responses, I want to ask you an honest question. When was the last time someone's words ruined your mood, distracted your mind, or completely changed the course of your day? Maybe it was a single sentence. Maybe it was only one word. Take a moment and think about it, because your answer reveals something important. It shows where your real inner work begins. Before we discuss the 7 responses, we need to understand a principle that lies at the heart of Stoic philosophy, something many people today have forgotten. Words are only weapons if we allow them to become weapons. Epictetus understood this better than most. Born into slavery, subjected to cruelty, and treated as though he had no power of his own, he still arrived at a remarkable insight. In his discourses, he wrote, "People are disturbed not by things themselves, but by the views they take of them." Read that carefully. According to Epictetus, it isn't the event itself that creates our suffering. It's the meaning we attach to it. The words someone throws at you are simply words. What causes the pain, the racing thoughts, the anger, the embarrassment, the sleepless night, is often the story your mind creates around those words the moment they land. Marcus Aurelius expressed the same idea in a different way. Writing privately in his journal, he reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Now, let's be clear about something. The Stoics were not saying that cruelty doesn't hurt. They were not pretending that insults or harsh words have no effect. Seneca wrote extensively about the emotional wounds people can inflict through language. What the Stoics understood is that there are 2 separate events taking place. First, there is the wound. Second, there is your response to that wound. The first may not always be within your control. The second always is. Everything we're about to discuss is built on that distinction. The 7 responses in this video are not clever comebacks. They're not verbal tricks designed to win arguments. They are ways of thinking, philosophical positions rooted in Stoic wisdom that help you remain steady when others try to provoke, insult, or destabilize you. They allow you to respond from a place of inner strength rather than emotional reaction. Let's begin with the first response. Response number 1. I may be wrong. Just 3 simple words. And if they make you uncomfortable, that's completely understandable. Because most people instinctively believe that saying "I may be wrong" is a sign of weakness. We assume it means surrendering, backing down, or admitting defeat. But the Stoics saw it differently. To them, the willingness to admit you could be mistaken wasn't weakness at all. It was strength. The Stoics saw things very differently. Most people assume that admitting you might be wrong is a sign of weakness. The Stoics believed it was a sign of strength. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, commander of vast armies, and arguably the most powerful man in the world at the time, wrote in his private journal, "If someone can show me that my thinking or actions are mistaken, I will gladly change." Think about that for a moment. This wasn't false modesty. Marcus wasn't trying to appear humble. He was practicing one of the core disciplines of Stoicism, the recognition that our view of reality is never complete. Our perceptions are filtered through our experiences, our emotions, our desires, and most importantly, our ego. We often see not what is true, but what we want to be true. The Stoics had a term for these immediate judgments and assumptions: impressions. They believed that blindly accepting our first impressions is one of the main causes of human error. And this is exactly why the phrase, "I may be wrong," carries so much power. When someone criticizes or attacks you, they are often aiming directly at your ego. They expect you to become defensive. They expect you to argue, justify yourself, or fight back. Why? Because someone who is desperately protecting their ego becomes predictable. Their emotions take control. They react instead of thinking. But when you calmly respond with, "I may be wrong," something unexpected happens. You remove the target they were aiming at. There's nothing left to attack. At the same time, you communicate something deeply unsettling to anyone trying to provoke you. I am not afraid of being wrong. And if you're not afraid of being wrong, you're not afraid of them. There's a story about Epictetus that illustrates this perfectly. One day, a student aggressively challenged his teachings, insisting they were inconsistent and flawed. The student expected an argument. He expected resistance. Instead, Epictetus simply smiled and said, "Perhaps you've noticed a mistake that I've missed. Tell me more." Suddenly, the student's aggression had nowhere to go. Without opposition, the conflict lost its momentum and faded away. This reflects a Stoic principle known as alignment with truth rather than attachment to self. When your loyalty is to the truth instead of your ego, you become remarkably difficult to defeat. After all, you've already agreed to let go of any belief that turns out to be false. Now think about someone in your own life who regularly makes you feel defensive. What might change if the next time they challenged you, your first reaction wasn't to defend yourself, but to genuinely ask, could they be right? Sit with that question for a moment, not as an act of surrender, as an act of wisdom. Response number 2, silence. At first glance, silence might not seem like a response at all. Most people believe they have to say something. They feel compelled to explain themselves, defend themselves, or prove a point. The Stoics disagreed. In one of his letters to his friend Lucilius, Seneca encouraged him to spend time with people who help him grow and to welcome opportunities to help others grow in return. But hidden within that same letter is an important warning. Seneca advised avoiding people who constantly complain, spread negativity, or drain your energy, and his preferred method wasn't argument, it was distance. The Stoics understood something that modern psychology continues to confirm. Not every challenge deserves your attention. Not every criticism deserves your response. And sometimes silence is the strongest response available. Here's why. When someone insults, provokes, or belittles you, they're often seeking a reaction. Whether consciously or unconsciously, they want something from you. Your anger, your frustration, your fear, your need to explain yourself. That emotional energy is what keeps the exchange alive. Silence cuts off the supply. But we're not talking about cold silence or passive-aggressive silence. We're talking about Stoic silence. The silence of someone who has heard the words, considered them carefully, and decided they simply don't require a response. It's not avoidance. It's judgment. It's the quiet confidence of a person who understands that not every invitation to conflict must be accepted. Marcus Aurelius practiced a discipline of mindful self-observation. Part of that practice was noticing the powerful urge to respond immediately, to justify himself, defend himself, or fill every uncomfortable pause with words. Instead of reacting automatically, he would pause and ask himself, is a response truly necessary? That simple question creates space between stimulus and reaction. And in that space, wisdom has room to act. Because sometimes the strongest statement you can make is no statement at all. Sometimes silence says, I've heard you, I've considered what you've said, and I've decided it doesn't deserve control over my peace. That is not weakness, that is mastery. Before reacting, Marcus Aurelius often asked himself a simple but powerful question: does this moment need my words or simply my presence? It's a question most of us rarely stop to consider. In his meditations, Marcus wrote, "How much more harmful are the consequences of anger than the things that caused it?" He wasn't speaking in theory. He lived this reality every day. As Emperor of Rome, he was constantly surrounded by people trying to provoke a reaction. Senators challenged him, generals tested his authority, philosophers criticized him in public. Everyone seemed to want something from him, especially an emotional response. Yet, history records the same pattern again and again. Marcus paused before speaking, and often he chose not to speak at all. The ancient Greeks had a term for this quality: greatness of soul. It described a person who remained steady and composed when others expected them to react, someone who refused to be controlled by impulse. And there's a practical reason why this matters. The moment you react emotionally and immediately, you reveal yourself. You show people exactly which words trigger you, which criticisms bother you, and which buttons they can press to get a response. In a sense, you hand them a map, but when you meet provocation with calm silence, or with only the briefest and most measured acknowledgement, you reveal nothing. Your peace remains yours. And as the Stoics would say, you remain free. Over the years, I've noticed something interesting about truly powerful people. They often come from different backgrounds, have different personalities, and live very different lives. But they share one common trait. When challenged, they don't rush to speak. They don't feel compelled to fill every silence. Often, the silence itself becomes the answer. Response number 3. That's an interesting perspective. This may be the most challenging response of all. Why? Because it requires genuine philosophical discipline. It asks you to do something that most people find incredibly difficult: to engage without immediately judging, to acknowledge without agreeing, to stay connected to another person's viewpoint without getting pulled into it. Epictetus begins his handbook of Stoic practice with one of the most important ideas in Stoicism. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. The phrase, "That's an interesting perspective," is a practical expression of that principle. Notice what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean you agree. It doesn't mean you disagree. It doesn't mean the other person is right. It doesn't mean they're wrong. In fact, it takes no position at all. Instead, it communicates something much simpler. I've heard your point of view. I recognize that it exists, and I don't need to make it my problem. The Stoics were fascinated by how connected human beings are to one another. They believed we are all part of a larger whole, but they also recognized a danger. We often absorb other people's emotions without realizing it. Their fears become our fears. Their anger becomes our anger. Their certainty becomes our certainty. Without noticing, we start carrying emotional burdens that were never ours to begin with. The Stoics referred to these emotional disturbances as passions, states that pull us away from reason and inner balance. This is where the phrase, "That's an interesting perspective," becomes so powerful. It acts like a boundary, a mental filter. It creates a small but crucial space between what someone says and how you choose to respond. And within that space lies freedom. Now, there's something important to understand. For this response to be truly Stoic, it must be sincere. The Stoics had little patience for manipulation, passive aggression, or pretending. If you say, "That's an interesting perspective," while secretly boiling with anger, then you've missed the point entirely. The goal isn't to sound calm. The goal is to become calm. To genuinely approach other people's opinions with curiosity instead of defensiveness. To recognize that every person sees the world through a different lens. And rather than feeling threatened by that fact, to find it interesting. Because when you stop treating every disagreement as a battle, something remarkable happens. You gain the freedom to observe without reacting, to listen without absorbing, and to remain grounded in your own peace no matter what opinions surround you. Rather than seeing different opinions as threats, the Stoics saw them as opportunities for understanding. Marcus Aurelius returned to this idea repeatedly throughout his meditations. He lived among people whose beliefs he disagreed with, whose behavior frustrated him, and whose political views often troubled him. Yet instead of responding with hostility, he challenged himself to remain curious about what shaped those people and why they thought the way they did. One of his most famous reflections begins like this: "When you wake up in the morning, remind yourself that the people you meet today may be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, or difficult." But Marcus doesn't stop there. He goes on to remind himself that these people share the same human nature as he does. They are driven by the same hopes, fears, desires, and misunderstandings that affect everyone. He wasn't suggesting that we excuse bad behavior. He was encouraging us to recognize our shared humanity, to become genuinely interested in how different people can begin with the same basic human experiences and arrive at completely different conclusions. That is the deeper meaning behind the phrase, "That's an interesting perspective." When a Stoic says it sincerely, what they're really saying is, "I see your point of view. I recognize your humanity, and I can explore your thinking without feeling threatened by it." Before we continue, I'd love to hear from you. Is there a situation in your life right now where simply responding with, "That's an interesting perspective," would completely change the conversation? Share it in the comments. I read everyone. Response number 4. Let me think about that. We live in a world that celebrates instant reactions. Respond immediately. Share your opinion right away. Never leave a message unanswered. Never allow a moment of silence. But the Stoics saw danger in that impulse. More than 2,000 years before social media, before comment sections, and before the endless pressure to react, they understood that haste often leads to mistakes. Seneca wrote, "I will keep constant watch over myself and review each day." This daily self-examination became one of the most important Stoic practices. It was built on a simple but profound insight. Time reveals what haste hides. The phrase, "Let me think about that," embodies this wisdom perfectly. It accomplishes several things at once. First, it honors reason. The Stoics believed that our capacity for rational thought is one of our greatest gifts. It separates thoughtful action from impulsive reaction. When we respond immediately, we're often allowing emotion, ego, or instinct to speak before reason has had a chance to do its work. Second, it communicates respect. By saying, "Let me think about that," you're telling the other person that their words deserve consideration. Most people expect resistance. Few expect thoughtful reflection. And because of that, this response is often surprisingly disarming. But there's an even deeper Stoic lesson hidden within it. It teaches patience, the willingness to sit with uncertainty, the ability to admit that you don't yet have an answer, and that you're comfortable taking time to find one. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. The historian Cassius Dio recorded that when Marcus presided over important legal cases, he rarely rushed to judgment. Instead, he asked questions, he gathered information, he consulted past examples. Sometimes, he even slept on decisions before making them. To many people around him, this seemed frustratingly slow. History, however, has largely proven him right. In everyday life, this response has the power to transform conflict. The moment you sincerely say, "Let me think about that," the conversation changes. It stops being a battle to win. It becomes a search for understanding. The emotional temperature drops. The focus shifts from reaction to reflection. For many of us, this is difficult. We want to prove that we've already thought about everything. We don't want to appear surprised or uncertain. We feel pressure to have answers immediately. That's a very human instinct, but the Stoics would remind us that it's not always a helpful one. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can say is, "Let me think about that." Those 5 words aren't a retreat. They're an act of intellectual strength. Response number 5. You might be right. At first glance, this sounds similar to our first response. I may be wrong. But there is an important difference. I may be wrong focuses inward. It acknowledges your own limitations. You might be right looks outward. It opens the door to the possibility that someone else has seen something you haven't, and that is often much harder. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, taught that the purpose of discussion isn't to win, it's to discover truth. According to Stoic thinking, If you enter a conversation determined to prove yourself right rather than learn something new, you've already missed the point. This is why "you might be right" is such a powerful response. Not because it's a clever strategy, not because it helps you avoid conflict, but because it reflects a genuine commitment to truth. When you say it sincerely, without manipulation, without sarcasm, and without hidden motives, you demonstrate what the Stoics called goodwill, a willingness to let another person's perspective teach you something valuable, a desire to learn rather than dominate. And people can sense that difference immediately. They know when you're merely pretending to listen, and they know when you're genuinely open to understanding. That kind of openness isn't weakness. It's one of the clearest signs of confidence, because only someone secure in themselves can honestly admit that another person might have something important to teach them. It's important to understand what the phrase "you might be right" does not mean from a Stoic perspective. It doesn't mean surrendering. It doesn't mean agreeing with everything the other person says, and it certainly doesn't mean giving up your own beliefs. What it means is something far more powerful. I'm willing to consider your perspective without treating it as a threat. That's a very different mindset. Seneca once wrote, "The first step toward becoming a better person is wanting to become one." The same principle applies to conversations. The first step toward having a meaningful discussion is being willing to be changed by it. If you enter every conversation already convinced that you're right and nothing could possibly alter your thinking, then you're not really having a conversation at all. You're performing. You're waiting for your turn to speak. And the Stoics had little interest in performance disguised as wisdom. Here's something worth reflecting on. Think about the last time someone genuinely changed your mind about something important. What happened? What made you open to their perspective? If you're honest, it probably wasn't because they overwhelmed you with logic or forced you into agreement. More often, it was because you felt respected, you felt heard. You sensed that they weren't trying to defeat you, they were trying to connect with you. They wanted understanding, not victory. And that's exactly the feeling you create when you sincerely say, "You might be right." Even in difficult conversations, those 4 words can lower defenses and open the door to genuine dialogue. Response number 6. This doesn't require my reaction. Unlike the other responses we've discussed, this one is usually not spoken aloud. Most of the time, it's an internal response, a private reminder you give yourself in the brief moment between what happens and how you choose to respond. It's the thought that interrupts an emotional reaction before it takes control, the thought that prevents you from saying something you'll regret 5 minutes later or 5 years later. Occasionally, you may choose to say it out loud, calmly, and respectfully, and when you do, it carries remarkable strength. But its true power lies in what it does inside you. Epictetus repeatedly emphasized a concept called prohairesis, our ability to choose. To him, this faculty of choice was the very essence of human freedom. Everything else, he argued, lies outside our complete control: our health, our reputation, other people's opinions, even the circumstances of our lives. But one thing always remains ours: the choice of what we engage with and what we allow to pass. When you tell yourself, "This doesn't require my reaction," you are exercising that freedom. You are deciding where your energy belongs. You are refusing to hand over control of your inner state. Marcus Aurelius often thought about life through the lens of leadership and warfare. He understood that some obstacles require action, but he also understood something equally important: not every obstacle is meant to be fought. Some challenges exist to test your judgment rather than your strength. They ask a different question. Can you recognize that this isn't your battle? Can you see that not every criticism, insult, or provocation deserves your attention? Imagine this situation. A colleague makes a dismissive comment about your work in front of others. Immediately, your body reacts. Your face grows warm. Your heart starts racing. Every instinct tells you to defend yourself, to explain, to argue, to prove them wrong. The Stoic notices all of those impulses, but instead of obeying them, they pause and ask, "What is the best outcome I can achieve in the next 60 seconds?" Then they ask a second question: what is the best outcome I can achieve in the next 60 days? Those answers are often very different. Winning the next 60 seconds may cost you the next 60 days. The Stoic consistently chooses the longer view. They focus on what serves their character, reputation, and peace over time. That's why this doesn't require my reaction is not passivity, it's not weakness, it's strategic wisdom, it's choosing long-term strength over short-term satisfaction. Response number 7. Thank you for telling me. This may be the most difficult response of all, not because it's complicated, it's only 4 words, but because saying it sincerely requires a profound shift in perspective. To understand why, consider something Marcus Aurelius wrote in the first book of his Meditations. In that section, he reflects on the people who influenced his life and the lessons they taught him. One by one, he expresses gratitude. He thanks his teacher Rusticus for helping him recognize the flaws in his character and showing him where he needed greater discipline. He thanks his grandfather for teaching him patience and kindness. He thanks Sextus for demonstrating wisdom, dignity, and what it means to live in harmony with nature. What's striking about these acknowledgments is their honesty. Marcus isn't simply thanking people who made life easier, he's thanking people who made him better. And those are not always the same people. Often, the individuals who help us grow are the ones who challenge us, the ones who reveal our weaknesses, the ones who force us to confront uncomfortable truths. The Stoics practiced a philosophy often summarized as amor fati, the love of fate, not merely accepting what happens, not reluctantly tolerating it, but embracing it as part of your development. Centuries later, Nietzsche would popularize the phrase, but its roots run deeply through Stoic thought. And this is where the response, "Thank you for telling me," becomes so powerful. Because when someone offers criticism, points out a mistake, or shares an uncomfortable truth, the Stoic asks, "Is there something here that can help me grow?" If the answer is yes, then the feedback is a gift, and gifts deserve gratitude. "Thank you for telling me" is not an admission of defeat. It's an acknowledgement that wisdom can arrive from unexpected places. It's the recognition that every interaction, even an uncomfortable one, contains the possibility of learning something valuable. And when you can genuinely thank someone for revealing a blind spot, correcting an error, or offering a perspective you hadn't considered, you've reached a level of emotional maturity that very few people ever attain. Because at that point, you're no longer protecting your ego, you're developing your character. And that's what Stoicism has always been about. When someone offers criticism, whether it's constructive feedback, an uncomfortable truth, or even a harsh and unfair remark, there's often something valuable hidden within it. Not necessarily agreement, not necessarily proof that they're right, but information, clues about how you're being perceived, insights into things you may not have noticed, a glimpse into the gap that sometimes exists between how you see yourself and how others experience you. The Stoics approached this idea with remarkable practicality. They didn't believe that every criticism deserved acceptance. Far from it. Epictetus was clear that all feedback should be examined carefully and rationally. Some criticism is insightful, some is mistaken, some says more about the speaker than it does about you. But he also believed that our instinctive urge to reject criticism, defend ourselves immediately, or react with hostility is often a sign that we've stopped growing. Because growth requires openness, and openness requires courage. Seneca captured this beautifully in one of his letters when he wrote, "Gather and preserve the thoughts that may help you in difficult times." At the end of each day, he encouraged people to reflect on everything life had offered them, not only the pleasant moments, but also the difficult ones, the uncomfortable conversations, the mistakes, the criticism, the lessons hidden inside challenges. When a day had been lived well, Seneca would remind himself, "This day belongs to me." Not because everything went perfectly, but because he had learned from what it brought, including the moments that required him to say, "Thank you for telling me," and genuinely mean it. There is a version of you that never has to search desperately for the right response again. Not because you've memorized clever comebacks, not because you've mastered every conversation, but because you've internalized something deeper. You've realized that your identity is not dependent on what others think about you. You are not your reputation. You are not someone's opinion. You are not defined by your worst mistake or your most embarrassing moment. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself of this repeatedly. After long days spent governing an empire, dealing with conflict, uncertainty, and responsibility, he would return to a simple truth. You are a rational soul entrusted with the task of governing yourself. And from that place, from a mind that is steady, clear, and grounded, other people's words lose much of their power. No insult can truly diminish you. No criticism can destroy you. No provocation can take away your peace unless you hand it over. Because true strength doesn't come from reacting, it comes from understanding. Let's bring everything together. At the beginning of this video, I asked you to imagine what it would be like to stop being thrown off balance by other people's words, not because people would stop criticizing you, not because conflict would disappear, but because you would learn how to meet those moments differently. Tonight, we've explored 7 Stoic responses, not tricks, not manipulative tactics, not verbal weapons, but ways of thinking, ways of carrying yourself through difficult conversations with wisdom and composure. 1. I may be wrong. The courage to admit that your perspective may be incomplete. 2. Silence. The strength of knowing that not every situation requires a response. 3. That's an interesting perspective. The power of curiosity over defensiveness. 4. Let me think about that. The discipline of reflection before reaction. 5. You might be right. The openness to learn rather than simply win. 6. This doesn't require my reaction. The freedom that comes from choosing where your energy goes. 7. Thank you for telling me. The willingness to find growth even in criticism. But here's something important. These responses don't become part of you simply because you've heard them. They become part of you through practice, through repetition, through what Epictetus called discipline, the daily training of your character. Marcus Aurelius didn't write Meditations because he had perfected Stoicism. He wrote it because he was still working on it, every day. Despite being emperor, despite facing war, disease, political conflict, betrayal, and personal loss, he used those writings as a way to remind himself of the person he wanted to become. And that's exactly what Stoicism asks of us. Not perfection, practice. So here's a challenge for you. Tomorrow, choose just one of these 7 responses. Not all 7, just one. Then look for an ordinary opportunity to use it. Not during a major conflict, not in a crisis. Simply during a normal moment when you notice yourself wanting to react automatically. When you feel the familiar urge to become defensive, to interrupt, to prove yourself right. Pause. Try the Stoic response instead. Then pay attention to what happens. You may be surprised by how much a single moment of self-control can change the entire direction of a conversation. And when you've tried it, come back and share your experience, because that's what this community is really about, not just learning Stoicism, living it. If this video gave you something valuable today, a new perspective, a moment of clarity, or even a question worth exploring, consider sharing it with someone who might benefit from it. After all, philosophy has survived for thousands of years in exactly this way. One person sharing an idea with another, one conversation at a time. And if you'd like to see more deep explorations of Stoic wisdom and practical ways to apply it to everyday life, be sure to subscribe and join us for the next journey. Until then, remember, the goal is not to control what others say. The goal is to master how you choose to respond.